Dear students, today we'll continue the discussion of chapter number 6, that is process synchronization from module 2. This is my second lecture on this chapter. So we'll start the discussion with semaphores. So what is semaphore? So semaphore is nothing but a synchronization tool that does not require busy waiting. We know that whatever the modern computer systems we have, so we have something called cooperating processes, means the process whose execution will be influenced by the execution of the other processes. It's here some sort of the cooperation or the some sort of the concurrent execution will be there between the number of processes. So in this case, we know that whatever the resources that are available for the modern computer systems, so almost all the resources will be shared among the different processes that are executing at the same time. So that's why when the number of processes are executing at the same time, so we should have some sort of the control over the sharing of those particular resources, so that whatever the resources that are there, so these will be shared among all the processes in the fairly manner. Fairly in the sense, all the processes should get a chance to acquire those resources. So in other words, a particular process should not be unnecessarily waiting, and the other process will be enjoying those particular resources. So in order to ensure all these things, we have to deal with the synchronization. The same discussion we had in my previous lecture also. So we'll continue the same with the new concept here, that is semaphores. So in the previous lecture, I think we saw the necessary conditions for the deadlock. Okay, so how to overcome the situation by using the different solutions. I think we saw one software solution also, that is Peterson solution. After that, we saw one hardware solution also with the help of test and set and swap methods. Okay, so today we'll continue the same discussion, and again this semaphore is a particular solution in order to overcome that problem. So we'll see how exactly this semaphore can be used and how this can be useful to solve the deadlock problem. Means in order to achieve the necessary conditions, how we can make use of this. So semaphore means it's just it is denoted by capital S. It's an integer variable. It is accessible only through the two standard atomic operations, that is wait or P and signal or phi. So there is a more parallel terminology, that is P and P, but we use wait and signal only. Okay, so here the semaphore is nothing but an integer variable S, and this can be accessed only through the two standard atomic operations, that is wait and signal. Okay, so in general I will just tell you about wait and signal. So wait means the process which calls this particular function wait will be waiting until the corresponding resource is available or until it is permitted to access its critical section. Okay, this is a waiting. But whenever a process completes its execution, and if it want to inform that I have completed my execution and other process may continue its execution, so it should call this signal. Okay, so signal means it will be signaling the completion of its task so that the other may take up its own. Okay, so this is about the semaphore. So it's less complicated and can only be accessed via the two indivisible, that is the atomic operations. Atomic in the sense these are mutual exclusive operations. So next we'll see how exactly these two operations through which you can access the semaphore yes can be implemented, that is wait and signal method definition. So this wait it takes an argument, that is integer variable yes. So while yes is less than or equal to 0, we don't have any operation, because we assume that the value of yes should be a positive integer. If it is not less than or equal to 0, so we don't have any operation. In the other case, we have to simply decrement the value of yes, because we saw that wait means we will be waiting that particular process. And similarly, signal of yes means we will have only one statement, that is to increment the value of yes. So note, all modifications to S in wait and signal operations must be executed individually. That is, when one process modifies the semaphore value, no other process can simultaneously modify that same semaphore value. So that's what I told you here in the previous slide. So whatever these two are there, so these are atomic operations. Atomic in the sense, at a time only one process can execute, because you can see the same variable is shared between the two processes, wait and signal, and both are trying to modify the same variable. That is, here wait is trying to decrement the value of S, whereas signal is trying to increment the value of S. So here the same variable is shared among both the methods, so we should have these two methods as the atomic operation. Means atomic methods means at a time only one operation can execute and it can change the variable. So next we'll see the usage of semaphores, how we can use the semaphores. So the operating systems often distinguish between the counting and binary semaphores. Means here the operating systems divide the semaphores into the two categories. That is, one is a counting semaphore, another one is a binary semaphore. So what is counting semaphore? So a value of a counting semaphore can range over an unrestricted domain. As the name itself indicates, counting means the value for this semaphore is, there is no any limit on the corresponding value. It can have any, it can take any value. So that is called as the counting semaphore. Whereas binary semaphore, as the name itself indicates, the value of a binary semaphore can range only between the 0 and 1. Okay, it can have only the binary digits 0 and 1. Okay, so it's a binary semaphore. Okay, so counting semaphore, so there is no any restriction on the value that can be held by the semaphore. But in binary semaphore, a semaphore holds only the two possible values, that is 0 and 1. So that's why these binary semaphores are also called as the mutex semaphores or mutex locks. Okay, so this mutex is stands for mutual exclusion. From mutual we have taken mute, and for exclusion we have taken ex. So mutex is nothing but a mutual exclusion only. So these binary semaphores are also called as mutex locks. Okay, because through this it is possible to apply the mutual exclusion locks, as they are locks that provide mutual exclusion. Okay, so here if you go with this, the each process pi is organized like this. So we have a do while loop here, the while true. So wait mutex, after that critical section, after that signal mutex, remainder section. Okay, and while. So already I told you about this wait and signal. So initially the process pi will call the wait of mutex. Okay, so with respect to this mutex lock, it will call wait. Okay, so it will be waiting to enter the critical section. So whenever this process pi gets a permission to enter its critical section, it will execute the code in its critical section. So once it completes the execution, so it should inform that to the other processes and the system that it has completed. So for that it will call the signal of mutex in order to notify that I have completed my side and the rest can continue. So after that, this process, it will continue its remainder section execution. So in this way, the process pi can be organized with the help of by using this wait and signal to use the semaphores. So next we have the implementation of the semaphores. So to implement the semaphores, we use a structure here. So we have defined a structure that is typed a struct, which is having two data members. One is the value, which holds the value of a semaphore. Another one is a struct process star list. Okay, it's again a structure list which will be holding the number of processes that are waiting. Okay, so your list is nothing but a list of processes that are waiting in the semaphore. Remember this. Okay, so the name of the structure is semaphore. So again, let us see how we can implement wait and signal by using this structure here. So this wait, so this time it will take an argument of type semaphore, that is star yes. Okay, so as we saw, this yes will be having the two data members, value and the list. So we in wait we decrement the value by, that is s of value minus minus, and after that we check if s of value is less than 0. So what we have to do, we have to add this process to s of list. Okay, so remember in the previous slide also we have seen the implementation of wait and signal, and here we assumed that the value of s should be a positive integer, and in wait we decrement the value of s, and in signal we increment the value of s. But here in this implementation, so we don't have any restriction on the value. Okay, it can be positive or it can be negative also. But here if the value of semaphore is less than 0, we indicate we have to consider that the process is waiting, and that should be added to the list of waiting processes. So that's why here, as usual in wait method, we decrement the value of the corresponding semaphore, and after decrementing, if the value of that semaphore is less than 0, we have to simply add that process to the s of list, and we have to block. So in this way this wait can be implemented. So next we'll see how the signal method can be implemented here. So it is signal of semaphore star s. So again in signal we know that we have to increment the value of semaphore. So it is s of value plus plus. Okay, and here we check whether the value is greater than or equal to 0. If the s of value is greater than or equal to 0, what we have to do? We have to remove a process p from the list. Okay, and we have to call wake up of p in order to start executing that particular process. Okay, so this is how you can implement the semaphores. Just remember, in wait we decrement the value, in signal we increment the value. In wait we check whether the value is less than 0. If the value is less than 0, we add a process to the list of waiting processes, and we call block. Okay, because that process will go to the waiting state. But in signal process, in signal method, what we do, we increment the value. Okay, and after that we check whether the value is greater than or equal to 0. If the value is greater than or equal to 0, we have to simply remove that process from the list of waiting processes. Okay, and we have to call the wake up method in order to wake up that particular process. Okay, so this is how we can implement the semaphores. So after this we have the deadlock and starvation. So what is deadlock? So deadlock is and situation, this deadlock and starvation, these are just the conditions or the situations in which the processes may be. Okay, so first we'll see what is deadlock. So deadlock means what? So when two or more processes are waiting indefinitely for an event that can be caused by only one of the waiting process. Means here you consider there are two processes, P0 and P1. Okay, and here this P0 is also waiting for a particular event that can be caused by P1, and P1 is also waiting for a particular event that can be caused by some other process. It may be P0 or it may be P2. Okay, so here unnecessarily the two processes are waiting for a particular event which can be caused by the another process. So this situation is called as a deadlock. Okay, so in order to understand this, so you consider an example here. Okay, but actually here the method names are changed. So you just consider this acquire is nothing but a wait method, and release is nothing but a signal method. Remember this. This acquire is nothing but a wait method, and release is nothing but the signal method. Okay, so here let us consider we have two processes, P0 and P1, and we have two semaphores, S and Q. Okay, so let us consider the process P0 calls S dot wait. Okay, and after that it will call Q dot wait. Here process P1 calls Q dot wait, and after that it will call S dot wait. Okay, so here S dot wait means the process P0 is waiting for semaphore S. Okay, here Q dot wait means process P1 is waiting for semaphore Q. At the same time, here P0 will also call Q dot wait to indicate it is waiting for semaphore Q. P1 will also call S dot wait to indicate P1 is also waiting for semaphore S. So here you can see, here we have S dot wait, here also we have S dot wait, here we have Q dot wait, here also we have Q dot wait. So unnecessarily process P0 is waiting for here, and process P1 is waiting for here. So this is called as the deadlock. Okay, so eventually after some time the process P0 may call S dot release. So S dot release is like S dot signal. Okay, this may call q dot signal. So whenever it calls s dot signal, so this s dot wait will be satisfied. Okay, because it will be waiting, it was waiting for the semaphore yes, and when yes is available, it can start using that. Similarly, q dot signal means it will wake up this q dot wait. Okay, so this is an example for the deadlock. So we have one more terminology here, that is starvation. It's like hungriness. Okay, it's also called as indefinite blocking. So a process may never be removed from the semaphore queue in which it is suspended. Means here, if the process is continuously unnecessarily waiting and it is not at all allowed for the execution, so we call that process condition as the starvation. So next we'll see we'll discuss some classical problems of synchronization. So here we have the three classical problems. The first one is bounded buffer problem. Second one is readers writers problem, and third one is dining philosophers problem. So let us discuss these problems one by one. So first one is bounded buffer problem. This is very similar to the producer consumer problem, which we have discussed at the beginning of this particular chapter. So here in this bounded buffer problem, we have to assume that we have the n number of buffers and each buffer can hold one item. Okay, so here we have three semaphores, that is mutex, full and empty. So semaphore mutex is initialized to value 1, semaphore full is initialized to 0, and semaphore empty is initialized to n. Okay, as the name itself indicates, semaphore mutex will be used to ensure the mutual exclusion condition, which is initialized to 1. Semaphore full will be used to check whether the buffer is full, which is initialized to 0. Semaphore empty is used to check whether the buffer is empty, and it is initialized to n. That is the number of buffers. Okay, so let us see how this is implemented. So here you can implement this bounded buffer problem here with the help of those data structures which we discussed in the previous slide. So here we can implement the producer, and that's what I told you. This bounded buffer is very similar to the producer and consumer problem. So the producer process can be implemented like this. So producer means it will be producing the data item. So do while loop we have here. So producer means it will produce an item in the next P instruction. So whenever it produces an item, so it will be waiting to add that to the buffer. So before that it will call the wait of empty in order to check whether it is empty or not. Means see here we have considered the n number of buffers. Okay, and each buffer can hold a particular item. So whenever producer process produces an item, in order to place or store this item into the buffer, that buffer should be empty. Remember this. So here it will check, it will be waiting for an empty buffer. So whenever that empty buffer is available, so this will be waken up. So after that it will execute wait mutex in order to ensure the mutual exclusion condition is met. Means here at a time only one process will be allowed to execute on that shared data structure. So here when the wait of empty is also successful, when wait of mutex is also successful, now here the producer process will be in the condition that it is having one empty buffer to place the item, and it is the only process that is executing. So at that time it can execute its task to add the next bit to the buffer, that is it will add the generated item into the buffer. So once it completes the task, so that should be notified. So for that it will call the signal of mutex and signal of full to indicate that the task is over, the mutex and the other process can take up. Signal of full means the corresponding buffer is full. So this is how the producer process can be implemented in bounded buffer problem. Okay, so next we'll see how exactly the consumer process can be implemented. So for this also we have used do while loop, that is do till while true. So here the consumer means it will be waiting for an item. Okay, whenever an item is present, it will be consuming that. So that's why here it will be waiting. First it will call wait of full. to check is there any full buffer from which it can consume the data. Okay, so whenever it finds a full buffer, so it is ready. So again, to ensure the mutual exclusion, it will call wait of mutex. Okay, so when this wait of mutex is also successful, now there is a data available in the buffer and it is the only process executing, so it will remove an item from the corresponding buffer. Okay, so once it removes the item from the corresponding buffer, its task is over. So to again notify that, it calls signal of mutex. Okay, to indicate I have completed my execution and other process can take up. Okay, and after that signal of empty to indicate the corresponding buffer's data is consumed and now the buffer is empty. Okay, so in this way the consumer process can be implemented. So after this, again it is having the some more remaining lines, that is consume the item in the next and so on. Okay, so this is about the bounded buffer problem. This is first classical problem. So we'll see the second classical problem, that is readers writers problem. So what is this readers writers problem? So let us consider we have a data set that is shared among the number of concurrent processes. So let us assume we have a data set which is presently shared among the number of concurrently executing processes. Okay, so here when we have a data set, so the processes will be using it for the different purposes. So we can summarize this into the two operations. The processes, some processes will be just reading the content and some processes will be trying to modify the content. So that's why whatever the concurrent processes that are sharing that are accessing the shared data set, we categorize those processes into the two types, that is readers and writers. Okay, so what are these readers processes? So readers processes will only read the data set, they do not perform any updates. Okay, whereas writer processes can both read and write. Okay, so here the problem is allow multiple readers to read at the same time, but only one single writer can access the shared data at the same time. So this is known because here we know that readers means they will be just reading the content of the data set, they will not be performing any modification. Okay, means here simultaneously if the number of reader processes are accessing the data, there is no any harm. But if you allow both reader and writer processes at the same time, the writer will be modifying the content, and during that the reader will be reading the content. So as a result, the reader will not get whatever it is expecting. So that's why here there should be a some sort of control over the processes, that is reader and writer. Okay, so that's why here again we have the two situations. The first one is whenever the reader processes are waiting and when there is no any writer process, so the first condition tells that all the reader processes should be allowed to perform their read operation if there is no any writer process. Okay, because writer means it will be modifying, if there is no writer means there is no any modification. So whatever the reader processes are there, all can perform their reading task. In the second condition, whenever a writer process is ready to perform the write operation, so in that case it should be allowed to perform the write operation, and during this period no any reader operation should be no any reader or writer operation should be allowed. Okay, so at a time whenever a writer process want to perform the write operation, so exclusive access should be given to that particular process so that it can modify the content. So next we'll see how exactly this reader writers problems can be solution can be implemented by using semaphore. So here we have a data set and we have the two semaphores, that is mutex and WRT. Mutex is again to ensure the mutual exclusion, WRT is to indicate the write operation. These are initialized to 1, and we have an integer, that is reader count, which is initialized to 0. So this reader count indicates presently how many reader processes are active on the system. So this is the code in order to provide a solution for this readers writers problem using semaphores. So by this the reader process can be implemented like this. So here we have do while loop. So initially it will call wait of WRT. Okay, wait of WRT means it will check is there any writing process that is carrying on. Okay, because as per the first condition we know that as per the second condition we know that whenever a writer process is ready to perform the write operation, it should be allowed, okay, and it should be given exclusive access. At that time no other reader process should be allowed. So that's why here if any write process is carried out, so it will simply call wait of WRT. Okay, so after that the writing is performed. So once the writing is performed, so it will call signal of WRT. Okay, so after that it will perform. Okay, so actually the thing is, this is not the reader, this is writer process and this is reader process, remember. Okay, I think that I have just changed the title here. So this is writing process. So writing process means it will be waiting for the exclusive access to the shared data. Okay, so do wait of just a minute. Okay, now it is correct. Okay, so the first one is writer process and this one is the reader process. Okay, so here the writer process, it will be waiting for the write. So whenever it gets that permission, okay, to write, so exclusive access will be given, so it will perform the writing operation. Once it completes the writing operation, it will call the signal to indicate I have completed my write operation, and other requesting or pending request can be taken up. So next we consider the reader process. So it's very simple. So wait mutex. So because we know that the reader number of readers will be allowed to execute at the same time, so it will call wait mutex. So once it gets the permission, so it will simply will increment the read count by 1, because this read count variable will indicate presently how many reader processes are active. Okay, so if read count is equal to 1, so we'll simply call the wait of write. So it will be waiting for the write, because we know that in the previous slide this read count is initialized to 0. So when it becomes 1, so we have to call this wait of write. Okay, so after that it will call the signal of mutex to indicate that I have completed my task. Okay, so after that it will perform the reading operation. So after that again it will wait for the mutex. So once it is done, it will increment and decrement the read count by minus to indicate I have completed my reading task. Okay, so after that if read count is equal to 0, so there is no any waiting reader process, so it will signal to the write that it can perform. Okay, it can start its operation. So when signal of WRT is called by the reader process, so this wait of WRT will be successful. So this writer process will get access to the shared data. Okay, similarly here you can see the reader process will be calling wait of write. Okay, so here wait of write means it will be waiting for the writer process. Okay, so whenever this writer process calls the signal of write, so this will be successful. Okay, so after that this particular reader process can perform its task. Okay, so this is how the mutual exclusion is ensured through the semaphores. Okay, so this is how the readers writers problem can be solved using semaphores. So next we'll see the third classical problem of dining philosopher's problem. So dining philosopher problem means here you can see this particular figure. So here this middle this circle arrangement, this indicates a table. Okay, and here side we have 5 chairs. So on these 5 chairs we have the 5 philosophers. So they will be eating and thinking. Okay, so they will be performing the 2 tasks. They will, whenever they get hungry, they will be eating, and at the other time they will be thinking. Okay, so you can observe here at the middle there is a rice ball. Okay, and here these are nothing but the chopsticks. So here the condition is whenever a particular philosopher is hungry and whenever he want to perform means whenever he want to eat, so he should have the 2 chopsticks. If we have the 2 chopsticks, then only he can perform the eating. If you don't have the 2 chopsticks, he will not perform the eating. Okay, and here clearly you can see there are only 5 chopsticks that are shared among the 5 philosophers, and every philosopher requires the 2 chopsticks. The condition is a philosopher can use the chopsticks, only those chopsticks which are available with him and with her and her neighbors. Okay, means here this philosopher can use only this and this chopstick. He cannot use this and this chopstick or this one if it is available. Okay, the same thing is true for all the philosophers. So how to solve this problem? Okay, so again this problem can also be solved very easily by using the semaphores. So in order to provide the solution for this dining philosopher's problem, so whatever this ball of rice is there, so this we consider as the data set which is shared among all the processes. Okay, so we use a semaphore, that is chopstick of 5, to indicate these chopsticks, and this is initialized to 1. So the solution is here. So for this dining philosopher problem, so the structure of a philosopher I will be like this. So we have do while loop, and here do, each philosopher will be waiting for a chopstick. So philosopher I will wait for a chopstick of I. Okay, so once it gets one chopstick, because we know that whenever he is hungry and whenever he want to perform the eat operation, he should have two chopsticks. Okay, so that's why whenever he gets the first chopstick, again he will be waiting for the second chopstick. So that's why it is I plus 1 we have taken. But you can consider, because we know that he can take the next one or the previous neighbor's chopstick. So in general we have taken I plus 1 here. So it is chopstick of I plus 1 mod 5, because it should not exceed, because we have only 5 philosophers, and after 5 it should not be 6. Okay, so that's why here chopstick of I plus 1 mod 5. So when chopstick of I is available, when chopstick of I plus 1 is available, means the presently process that is philosopher I is having two chopsticks. So in only when this philosopher I is having the two chopsticks, he can perform the eat operation. Remember this. Okay, it's very easy. So wait, through wait it will be waiting for a chopstick. So wait chopstick of I means the philosopher I is waiting for his chopstick. So whenever his chopstick is available, he will be waiting for its neighbor chopstick. When that neighbor is eating, so that chopstick will not be available. So during that period the philosopher I will be in the waiting state. So whenever that neighbor I plus 1 will release that chopstick, he will be calling the signal of I plus 1. So when he calls the signal of I plus 1, so this will be successful. So when philosopher I gets these two chopsticks I and I plus 1, so he can perform the eat operation. Okay, so whenever he performs the eat operation, so again he should go for the thinking. So in that, because see here, whenever he performs the eat, whenever he completes, so this chopstick should be available to the others. So that's why it will call the signal. Okay, so it will call the signal with respect to his chopstick, that is signal chopstick of I, so that his chopstick is also available to his neighbor. Okay, again signal of chopstick I plus 1, so that his neighbor's chopstick is also available to the others. Okay, so once the signal of chopstick I and signal of chopstick of I plus 1 is called, so if any other philosopher is waiting for chopstick I and I plus 1, so he will get access to these chopsticks and he can perform the eat. Okay, so once this philosopher I calls this signal, so he can again go back to the thinking process. Okay, so in this way you can provide a solution to the dining philosopher's problem using semaphores. Okay, so next we'll see the monitors, the last point of this chapter. So what are these monitors? So monitor, it's a ADT, that is abstract data type that is available. Okay, so it's a high level abstraction that provides a convenient and effective mechanism for the process synchronization. So by this monitor, only one process may be active within the monitor at a time. So your system is going to provide an ADT to deal with the synchronization. So it is nothing but a monitor. So if you consider the syntax of a monitor, so it looks like this. So we have monitor, the name of the monitor. So after that, here we have some shared variable declaration, and after that we have the number of procedures, that is P1 to Pn, and after that we have the initialization code. So this is the schematic view of a monitor. So we know that this is a monitor. So here we have the shared data, we have the initialization code, and here we have the number of operations or the procedures. Okay, and again here, in order to enter this, we have a queue of processes, that is nothing but an entry queue which is waiting to enter into this monitor. Okay, So here in order to use or the implement this monitors, we use the two condition variables, that is x and y. Okay, and here there are two operations on these condition variables, that is x dot wait and x dot signal. Okay, as we saw in the previous discussion. So x dot wait means a process that invokes this operation is suspended. Okay, because we know when a process calls this x dot wait, so it will be waiting, means it will be suspended, and x dot signal means it resumes one of the processes, if any, that invoked the x dot wait. Okay, if other process is waiting by calling x dot wait, and here if one process calls x dot signal, so that waiting process will be invoked. Okay, so if you consider the monitor with condition variables, so the schematic view will look like this. So in this shared data only we have these condition variables, that is x and y. So we have again the queues associated with these two condition variables x and y along with these entry queues. Okay, so next we'll see how exactly the monitors can be used to provide solution to the dining philosopher's problem. Because you don't be confused, in our previous discussion we saw the solution to the dining philosopher's problem using semaphores. Okay, so here this is a solution to the dining philosopher problem using semaphores, because we have used wait and signal along with the semaphore chopstick. Okay, as we saw here. Okay, so here now we'll see how we can provide a solution to the dining philosopher's problem using monitors. Very simple. So in order to provide the solution, here we declare one monitor. The name of the monitor is DP. It stands for the dining philosophers. So here we declare one enum data type to indicate the state of the philosopher, and we know that the philosopher may be in any of the three states. He may be thinking, he may be hungry, or he may be in the eating state. Okay, thinking means he have completed eating, he is just thinking. Hungry means he is hungry, he want to eat, but presently he don't have the chopsticks. Okay, when he gets the chopsticks, he will go to the eating state. Okay, so to store this, we take one array, that is state of 5. The value of this state may be any one of these three, that is thinking, hungry, eating. Already you know about enum. Okay, so after this we declare one more array, that is self of 5 of type condition, to indicate the condition, present condition of the philosopher. So here mainly we have the two methods, that is pick up and put down. Pick up is to pick up the chopstick, and put down is to put down the chopstick. Okay, whenever the eating is over. So let us see how this pickup is implemented. So pick up int I. Okay, so state of I equal to hungry. So pickup means he want to pick up the chopstick. So when he will pick up the chopstick, when he want to eat. So when he want to eat means he is in the hungry state. Okay, so that's why we assign state of I equal to hungry. Okay, and after that we call the test function, test method with respect to I, to check whether, because see, in order to pick up means in order to eat, the philosopher should have the two chopsticks. Okay, so that's why we call the test method here. Okay, so test of I. So before we see next, we'll see how this test is implemented. So void test of int I. So this test is just to check whether the chopsticks are available. Okay, so here we'll simply we'll check if state of I plus 4 mod 5 is not equal to eating, and state of I is equal to hungry, and state of I plus 1 mod 5 is not equal to eating. Means here I plus 4 mod 5 and I plus 1 mod 5. I plus 4 mod 5 means his previous neighbor. I plus 1 mod 5 means his next neighbor. Okay, because we know that if his previous neighbor is eating, so he will be using both the chopsticks. Okay, and when his next neighbor is also eating, he will be using his both chopsticks. Okay, so when both of his neighbors are not eating, then only he will get the two chopsticks. So in order to ensure these two, so we have this, that is if state of I plus 1 mod 5 is not eating, means if his neighbor the previous neighbor is not eating. Okay, if you are getting confusion, you consider the philosopher here. Okay, so let us consider this is the value of I. Okay, so if you write I plus 1, so if you consider this one, I plus 1 means this neighbor. Okay, but how to arrive at this one? So for this you have to write I plus 4, that is I plus 1, I plus 2, I plus 3, I plus 4. Okay, so that's why if you start, if you are at this particular one, means if you are at philosopher I, to check whether he is eating and he is eating, you have to, here to deal with this we have to use I plus 1. Okay, if philosopher I is here, philosopher I plus 1 will be here. Okay, similarly if philosopher I is here, philosopher I plus 1 will be, I plus 4 will be here, because this is I plus 1, I plus 2, I plus 3, I plus 4. Okay, so when this philosopher want to perform the eating operation, he should have both of the chopsticks. Okay, but let us consider the next immediate neighbor, that is I plus 1 is performing the eating. He will be using these 2 chopsticks. Okay, so as a result, when until he finishes its eating, so this chopstick will not be available to this philosopher. In the same way, if this previous neighbor is performing the eat, so he will be using these 2 chopsticks. Okay, means here this chopstick will not be available to this philosopher until this philosopher completes his eating. Okay, so this is implemented here using monitors. Okay, so that's what here, if state of I plus 4 mod 5 is not equal to eating and state of I plus 1 mod 5 is not equal to eating. Okay, so as I told you, I plus 1 means the next neighbor, I plus 4 is the previous neighbor. If both the neighbors are not eating, okay, and there is one more condition, that if the present philosopher, that is the state of I is equal to hungry, if the present philosopher is hungry, okay, and these 3 conditions are true, will change the state of that philosopher to eating. Okay, so that he can perform the eating operation. Okay, so once he completes the eating, so we have to call the signal with respect to self. Self means with respect to the philosopher, okay, who is performing eating, that is self of I dot signal, to indicate I have completed my eating task. Understood? Okay, so this is how the test is implemented. Okay, so test of I means it will check whether the 2 chopsticks are available. If the 2 chopsticks are available, the philosopher will be allowed to perform the eat. Okay, and once he perform the eat, he will be signal. So after that we'll check if whether the state of I is not equal to eating. So if the state of I is not equal to eating, we have to simply wait until that particular process is completed. Okay, so this is how the pickup is implemented. So similarly we have put down. So put down means here we have to put down the chopsticks. So here state of I equal to thinking, we change the state to thinking because he have completed the eating and now he is in the thinking state. So after that once again we call the test function with the value I plus 4 mod 5 and I plus 1 mod 5. I plus 4 mod 5 means with respect to the previous process, I plus 1 mod 5 is with respect to the next process, because presently I am in thinking state, means I will allow the previous philosopher and the next philosopher to perform the eating. Okay, so that's why we know when you call this test, it will check these 2 conditions, along with it will check this one. If the previous I plus 4 means if the previous philosopher is hungry, so he will be allowed to perform the eating by this test. If he is not hungry, so this next process will be allowed to perform the eating. Okay, so this is how the put down method is implemented. Okay, so apart from this we have one more, that is initialization code. So where we initialize the state of all the philosophers to thinking. So this should be executed at the beginning. Understood? So in this way the solution can be provided for the dining philosophers problem using monitors. I hope all of you understood. It's very simple. So if you are getting confusion with respect to I plus 4 and I plus 1, you just refer that dining philosophers table and chairs arrangement. It will be very easy for you. Okay. So after this, just to conclude that the solution to dining philosophers problem will be given, so that the philosopher I invokes the operations pick up of I and put down of I in the following sequence. Okay, pick up when he is hungry, he will call this pick up of I with respect to dining philosopher's variable. So when he is able to pick up the 2 chopsticks, he will perform the eat operation. When he perform the eat operation, he will call the put down, so that the other processes, the neighbor processes, will perform the eating, and after that he will go to the thinking process. Okay, so in this way the monitors can be used to provide a solution to the dining philosopher's problem. Okay, so with this we completed this chapter number 6, and in turn we have completed the module 2 also. Okay, thank you.